Tip Today, in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. Slattery'sGarage.ie.
Good morning, welcome along to Tip Today, 1800 938 007. That's our free phone number. Won't cost you if you'd like to make a call to us. And Leanne is producing today. Coming up on the show this morning, care doc workers threaten to strike over Christmas. We'll talk about that in just a few moments' time. We'll also be hearing from Cllr Liam Browne today, because he's saying that people are considering quitting their jobs to stay within the social housing income limits. We'll be hearing from Independent Ireland leader Deputy Michael Collins. He'll talk to us about the whole row around the blister packs. A mother who tragically lost her son in a car accident back in 2017 shares her story and her experience. Our legal eagle, John Lynch, will be with us. So all of that and more on the way. You can text and WhatsApp 083 311 3311. You can email tiptoday@tipfm.com. And of course, we're always glad to hear from you, however you might make contact with us. Let's have a look at the front pages of some of your newspapers today. The Irish Independent and their lead story by Mary Regan. Divisions within Fianna Fáil over the handling of its presidential campaign are deepening, and confusion over whether the review could face further delays. Now, the panel drawing up the report was due to meet last night, and it was expected the Taoiseach would be given a copy, paving the way for the review to be published. But that timeline is far from certain, and TDs are concerned it could be delayed further, prompting a backlash there, as you can imagine. The Irish Daily Mail and their lead story today: the Justice Minister has called on his political colleagues to be careful with their use of language following the Bondi Beach attack amid a rise in anti-Semitism worldwide. The Irish Times and the lead story on the Times today: fear about a breakdown in social cohesion are prompting the government to seek to reduce the number of people coming to Ireland to seek asylum. The Minister for Justice, Jim O'Callaghan, has said. It's interesting, if you said that a year ago, I mean, if you made that statement a year ago, you'd be branded as far rights and anyway, there you go. We'll tease that out later on the programme as well. The Dublin Airport Authority Board has told the Chief Executive, Kenny Jacobs, of its intention to suspend him on full pay, in a move that raises the prospect of a High Court conflict between the two parties. Now, that move comes as the board initiates a disciplinary investigation into Mr. Jacobs' conduct after new issues emerged when a senior barrister was investigating two formal complaints against him in the spring and summer. And also on the front of the Times today, the number of deaths on Irish roads so far this year has passed the total figure for 2024, according to provisional data from the Gardaí. The Irish Examiner and the lead story on the Examiner today: another worrying story about drugs, because extra potent illegal drugs are being produced in new European labs to capture more of the growing drug market as use escalates in Ireland and across the continent as well. Also reading on the Examiner today that Australia vowed stricter gun laws as it began mourning victims of its worst mass shooting in almost 30 years, in which a father and son are accused of killing 15 people at a Jewish celebration at Sydney's Bondi Beach. And finally, on the Examiner today, teenagers took to Cork's streets to say goodbye to an elderly man who died alone with no family, elevating what should have been a sad occasion into an uplifting one, showcasing the best of the city and humanity at its very finest there. And there's a picture of the young secondary school pupils carrying the coffin of Taffy Jones-Ginn in Cork yesterday. So let's look at what's making headlines. Do you want to make comment on any of that? And if you do, 083 311 3311 for your text and WhatsApp. Now, the HSE and CareDoc have agreed to re-enter talks aimed at preventing strike action that is due to be taken by employees at the GP out-of-hours service over the Christmas period. The workers have threatened to withdraw their labour on this coming Thursday. Also, plans for a 24 24-hour strike on the 23rd of December and the 27th of December, a 48-hour strike from the 29th of December and a 24-hour strike on the 2nd of January. SIPTU Organiser Ger Nally joins me now. Good morning to you, Ger.
Good morning, Fran, to you and your listeners, and thanks for having me on this morning.
You're very welcome and good to talk to you as well. What workers exactly are we talking about here, and what are the issues, Ger?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge that they're going back into talks today, both CareDoc and the HSE, and look, we'd urge them to come to a mechanism that can resolve this dispute. Yeah, look, we represent drivers, receptionists, admin staff and call takers within the service, and we have 130 members across the southeast. And just to let your listeners know, this dispute arises from a WRC agreement in 2023, which provided for an 8% increase for our members. This hasn't been applied yet, and after extensive requests for meetings with CareDoc or how they're going to address it or whatever, they've never addressed it, or they've never informed us how they're going to address the pay claim. I mean, we understand in May of the year there was 647,000 put into their account from the HSE to address the claim. Now, CareDoc would say that that's not enough to address the claim, that there's more needed.
They gave back that money, did they not, to the HSE?
Well, look, we were informed they gave it back, but they got it in May. I understand. When I first wrote into them, they didn't acknowledge they had it, even though we knew they had received it. On a second correspondence, they acknowledged they had it, and I quote, it was forced into their account. As part of this dispute, and when we were serving strike notice on them in the middle of November, we had a protest outside CareDoc's offices in Carlow, both us and the INMO. And following this, the money was sent back to CareDoc, or to the HS from CareDoc. So it was resting in their account for months before it was sent back. But they do state that not enough, and in correspondence to say to pay the 8%, it should be it's for $3 million. They're saying, look, CareDoc are the employer. So, look, our members get paid by CareDoc. Our disputes with CareDoc, how they get their funding or receive make their profits, it's not for us to know. Excuse me. If they need more than 647, we're not privileged to book, so we don't know that. We understand that when the HSE about the figure, they did offer them to come in and sit down to discuss and to see if they needed more or whatever. And I understand CareDoc never took up that offer of a meeting, and they have their own legal case going against the HSE at the minute, I think.
After the WRC meeting, though, did you not accept as a trade union that the GP out-of-hours cooperatives, including CareDoc, were not in the scope of the agreement? That was the Section 39 agreement.
The Section 39, no, that's not the case. It's not for a union to determine how an organisation gets its funding. That's up to the funder. So it was the funder's position that they deemed CareDoc out of scope for the Section 39. That's not the union's position. That's up to the funder. But within that agreement, there was to be a strategic review of the GP out of our service, and I know SIPTU have given a submission to that, and CareDoc were asked for a submission. I don't know if they gave that submission or not, but within that agreement, within the submission, we would be looking for pay parity with the HSE for comparative, and this 8% will not bring us anywhere near that, but this dispute is over the 8%. It's important to note that a lot of our members are barely on minimum wage, just above the minimum wage. A lot of the members are, and as you know, they're providing a 24-hour service for access to care that we've all used at some stage. And unfortunately, they've been left with no position to strike notice. And look, it's our members that are going to be out there that are going to pocket too at a very difficult time of the year. They're the ones that are going to be at the gates that they'll be down money at a vital time. Any time's a vital time for money, as you know, and we're living through a cost of living crisis with our energy bills and our food bills, etc., etc.
Right, but because talks have fallen down, even though there is a possibility now of them being reignited in some way. But again, it's the patients that will suffer here. And by all accounts, Ger, we're looking at a difficult Christmas from a flu point of view, from a COVID point of view, and all of that. So again, it's patience, and it's not their fault, but they're going to suffer.
Well, it's very regrettable, but as I said, this dispute is going on since before March 23, when the first agreement was made. So it's going on years. We met as a committee, us and the INMO, and a lot of planning went into these dates. They picked overnight. The dates weren't picked like last week or the week before. We weren't aware of any, this flu pandemic or whatever you want to call it, that's coming down the line. But equally, anyone can be sick anytime. So is it a case that if it's February or March, it's all right to be sick then, and we can we're mandated that we can strike then? No, we have to strike now. But clearly, in the HSE's website, without in relation to GP hours, in any case, at any time, if it's an emergency, you dial 999. Their protocol. We did offer. We had 2 meetings with CareDoc. We offered contingency plans. There is a separate what's called the blue line, which the emergency services have. It's a direct line, they have, and we've offered call takers around that. And separately, we hear and we all see it that all the A&Es are overrun. I suppose SIPTU have been campaigning and in dispute with the HSE over the staffing levels within all the hospitals as well. So that's a separate thing as well. But look, it's a perfect storm, I suppose. But our members are unfortunately the pawns in all this. And it's our members that are suffering every week with their pay packets. It's our members who haven't got an 8% uplift, which was agreed in the WRC.
Right, so the HSE, and where are we now exactly? The HSE and the CareDoc, they've agreed to re-enter talks, but your members, will you still go ahead with your action on Thursday?
We are prepared for our action. As we stand now, we'll be striking on Thursday morning at 8 o'clock until we hear something different. Again, I hope to find a mechanism today that they're able to apply the 8%. And look, it's getting late in the day, as they say, but there's only 2 people that can resolve this. That's CareDoc and the HSE. Our members can't resolve it. We've been mandated by our members for this. And look, SIPTU will give our members all the support around it because they deserve it. And we won't be found wanting in support.
All right, Ger, thanks for your time this morning. Thank you and good morning to you. We'll see how that pans out. That's Ger Nally there, SIPTU Organiser, and he's talking to us there about the possibility that CareDoc workers may withdraw their labour this coming Thursday and on those other dates as well that I mentioned. How do you feel about that? 083 311 3311.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
And you're very welcome back to Tip Today. Now, Independent Ireland leader Michael Collins has welcomed the government's decision to pause the introduction of charges for medication blister packs, but said the delay does not go far enough and warned that vulnerable patients are being left in a state of uncertainty. And Deputy Michael Collins joins me now. Good morning to you, Michael.
Good morning, Fran.
And thanks for your time this morning. You're saying that the decision should never have been on the table to begin with, but it seems to me that the arrangement with the HSE was kind of ad hoc anyway, was it not?
It was, but in fairness, it was attacking the most vulnerable in society, and it seems to me as if it was a kind of a sneaky little charge pushed in under the radar in the budget, and it is something that the government should now accept was a dreadful mistake. It was an attack on our elderly and people with disabilities, and it should not be paused. It should be immediately withdrawn and clarity given to the public out there, the concerned public out there, friend, that this charge will never apply again going forward. It was a real horrible thing, because these people, this is not a luxury. Blister packs is not a luxury. It's not something people want. Nobody wants to be on medication in the first place, but they have to be on a medication. There's people with dementia, there's people with disabilities, there's the elderly people, and some of them are paying between 20 and 50, would have to pay between 20 and 50 euros for this blister pack. And what it does is separate a patient's daily medication into label compartments. So, it was actually going to save in the long run. So people wouldn't end up in hospitals or in long-term care because they weren't taking their medication properly, or maybe failing to take their medication. So it was a dreadful decision by the government. It came under severe attack here in Dublin, and yes, they paused it, but I don't think pause goes far enough. I think an immediate withdrawal and an acceptance of a human error or a terrible error by someone along the line needs to be ahead here.
Minister Patrick O'Donovan, he accused opposition of being incapable of understanding where the income of the state comes from, and as you said, there was a big hoo-ha following that. But what about that? He spoke about the huge budget enjoyed by the HSE here. He said it's not an insignificant amount of money.
It's not, of course, it's not an insignificant amount of money, and nothing is. But you have to weigh it up against what could be the consequences of a decision by government. Because number one is people with disabilities who are already in the budget have taken a hit of €1,400, and the minister should take note of that. Also, a lot of people have no energy credits. A lot of people are talking about heating, or either heat or eat this year, and most of them are elderly people that can't maybe earn an income for themselves, or on a pension, or on a disability, and are now being hit with a sneaky charge to take extra money out of their pockets that they don't have already. And what is happening here in recent times, you see with the HRT, the minister was announcing free HRT. It sounded brilliant, and then it was thrown over to the pharmacies to resolve the crisis when they had to take the hit themselves. And in this case, what did the minister expect? The blister pack to the pharmacies to take the hit? She can't expect pharmacies will soon have to work for nothing to keep the government happy. This was a nasty hit. It was a hit against the sector in society that's that would be the weakest sector in society. And it's not good enough to say they pause it, Fran. This has to be withdrawn and give people the ease of mind that they wanted that worry at the end of the month to say, well, that's another 20 or 50 out of my pension that they don't have already.
I'm a little bit confused, though, because they're talking about postponing until the end of March, but then the statement is that the IPU, the pharmacy union, and its members will now have more time to engage with patients in a structured and individualised way over the next 3 months. What exactly does that mean?
Well, it looks to me as if the government are walking away from this and saying it's your issue to the pharmacy union and deal with it. It's not their issue. It's something that was covered before that's no longer covered by the state. So you can't expect the pharmacy union to explain to their entity, to explain that we're charging 20, 25, 30 to 50 euros every month from now on. And that's a nice explanation to give to your patient that can't afford it and will go without and will end up in hospitals in the long run. So, the government has to accept here that there's a terrible mistake. I heard the debate. I was inside in the Dáil, and we've raised it ourselves in the Bin Ireland, but I've heard it on numerous occasions, the debate going on, and it was indefensible. They couldn't. They were all over the place and trying to defend what they done. And it sounds like small money, but it's a lot of money to an elderly person and to a person with disabilities. I'm meeting people saying to me they can't live on their pension and they can't live on the disability allowance. And we have a government in that decides we'll punish them further. The most vulnerable in society. So the issue here is it's quite simple. Lady that told me it's costing her 40 a month at the present time. It will cost her 40 a month, if this is the go-ahead. Another person with a stroke contacted me. The family said he have 8 different medications to take daily. And this is the blister pack is the only way that this can be managed properly and that he can stay at home and be minded at home. But God almighty, what's wrong with society today that we decide to pick on the very, very most vulnerable in society, and now we only kick the can down the road. So we make sure they're worried again when March will come that the pharmacies does the minister expect the pharmacies going to pick up the tab for this? Not at all. It's not going to happen. Can't happen.
And speaking of spending, you've been very critical of the government, for instance, over the 125 million further funding to Ukraine. You're saying that ordinary Irish citizens are being asked to carry an ever-expanding burden, and you mentioned then homelessness and social deprivation, and I presume you're making reference to the likes of what we're talking about here as well. I heard Minister McEntee come out yesterday and she's saying, that pledging more funding to Ukraine. What are your thoughts on that at this point, Michael?
Well, we've spent 5.4 billion euros already in the state in relation to Ukrainians, and we've been absolutely a real friend of the people of Ukraine in a time where they desperately needed help. But there's a place called Stop, Fran, and we've said this is the place. We've done our best. We've provided 270 million for modular homes. We can't provide no modular home for our own people. 15,000 that are homeless. We've provided medical aid to them. We've done everything that could humanly possible and sent out millions of euros to Ukraine. And I condemn any Russian attacks on any innocent people in Ukraine. But it's time to look after the people at home here, because when you start charging 20 and 50 euros for a blister pack every month on people, when you take 1,400 euros off the disability for the people with disabilities this year alone, and don't give energy credits to over 300,000 people that can't pay their electricity bills, there's something wrong here. And the government seems to be tone deaf or non-understanding of this crisis that's evolving around our own country. And I just give one other point, Frank. Last weekend, the government seemed to shake hands on a deal, a fisheries deal, that's going to take 94 million euros off the Irish quota, mackerel quota, and 18 million off the hake quota. And they don't bat an eyelid on this. And they come back thinking they've done something.
And it sort of that kind of went under the radar, did it not?
It did, but it was a serious concern to me, because I met the fisheries leaders last week, and I begged them to make sure that Micheál Martin stays fully involved, and he didn't. I'm not disrespecting the General Minister, but my God, in negotiations like this, we have been absolutely wiped out. So basically what this deal has done is give further rights to everyone else all over the world, Irish waters, and Irish trawlers will be tied up at the pier. It's astonishing, to say the least. And from my gathering is that the Minister's coming home to talk about where we're going to get money out of the national coffers to compensate fisheries that have been robbed. You couldn't, like Russia invaded Ukraine. All these French and everybody else is invading Irish waters, and we're not even going to say anything, only pat them on the back and thank them. It's an astonishing situation we find ourselves with Irish fisheries. But the government have their eye out the ball in so many issues, but especially with the disabilities and especially with this blister pack. It's not on, and it has to be blocked and has to be stopped immediately.
Can I finally ask you, and it's on the front of the Times today, it's Pat Leahy's piece where he's talking about the Justice Minister, Jim O'Callaghan, fearing a breakdown in social cohesion at this stage, and he said it's prompting the government to seek to reduce the number of people coming to Ireland to seek asylum. But talking about a breakdown in social cohesion, now if anybody spoke like that a year ago or so, they'd be condemned in some sort of way. The rhetoric is changing, isn't it?
It certainly is, and that's amazing. It's what we have been calling for in Ireland for quite a long time. Debate, open and honest debate. Sometimes I don't like hearing what I have to hear, but I have to listen. But and sometimes clarity can be made on issues, but certainly now you're allowed to have a discussion on it. When you bring this up before, you'll be heckled and jeered at inside the dollars if you're some sort of enemy of the state. But there's 70 to 80% of the public out there have concerns about what's going on around the world, and why we're implicating ourselves and bringing people in here to this country that we can't vet. There was a very, very serious crime committed, an incredibly serious crime committed by an individual yesterday. We won't mention names, and I saw it in the paper. And the crime list he came in from this country from somewhere else. And the list of crimes he had committed before he came in here is astonishing to think. What is he in here in the first place? And he ended up murdering a child here. So, the bottom line is not everybody's like that. I accept that. But we certainly have to have safeguards in place, Fran, and they're not there in place, and they weren't in place. And now we're allowed to debate it at least, and that's healthy. That's healthy for democracy. And there will be somebody in that parliament or that Dáil when I'm inside debating different to me. And I'll accept that too. But at least we're allowed to give the side that 75% of the people of Ireland have said needs to be spoken. And we're getting that chance now.
And the other thing Jim O'Callaghan is talking about, in light of that awful, tragic shootings in Bondi Beach, he is calling on the government and others as well to sort of temper the rhetoric and make distinction, I suppose, between the Jewish people and the actions of Netanyahu and his government. Would you go along with that?
I would certainly. That was shocking. The shootings in Bondi Beach was absolutely horrific, to say the least. To me, quite innocent people trying to celebrate a little bit of an occasion of their own and their own culture, which I don't have any issue in, causing no problem to anybody on the beach. I don't understand what's wrong with society today, and we seem to be. I sometimes worry about Ireland, the way it wants to involve itself, especially some opposition politicians screaming and roaring about occupied territory bill, and not looking at maybe, is there peace happening? Can we give peace a chance? Can we promote peace? Can we encourage peace? but it's always kind of a bitterness and a resentment and resentment only leads to anger and boil over and sometimes lots of tragedy.
Where is that coming from, that we're not talking up peace? Because as a neutral sovereign state, I mean, we have an opportunity to do that. Where is it coming from that we're not vocal?
I just think it has been maybe weak from the government, and I think now they're making changes along that line. They're listening to people, because if you keep looking at the polls can't lie. 75-80% of people, have concerns about certain issues here, and up to now they've been ignored. Now they're no longer being ignored by government, but the opposition need to wake up as well. There's main opposition parties here that are obsessed on dragging every issue out here to the very end of the tether, and that gives people leverage to do what happened in places, that things that shouldn't happen. So I think that the government are doing, the right thing now. They're allowing debate, and I think the opposition need to pause a little. If there's a country that's going through a peace, and it might be an unrest, maybe not always a very peaceful peace, but it's getting there in the right place. We need to encourage that. We need to speak about that more often, and instead to more talking about how further actions could be taken to punish more, punish. I don't think, it's coming near Christmas. I think we need to lay off.
Thanks for your time this morning, Michael. Thank you. Good morning to you. That's Independent Ireland leader Michael Collins speaking to us there. Listener on to say, my wife needs a blister pack due to memory loss. We already pay €10 extra to our chemist out of a pension, it says here. Somebody else saying, Fran, a person on a disability allowance of €244 per week. We're finding it so difficult to find money for food, keeping warm, and the cost of medication. If they go to a GP for a blood work, it's a €20 cost. If they need a form filled out, it's €20 plus rent, etc. It's disgusting. Our government allowing our most vulnerable to go without in one of the so-called richest countries in the world, says Barb to us today. Okay, lots more coming into us on that. I'll just leave you with this one. Oh my gosh, Fran, that brought shivers and tears when you spoke about the funeral send-off for the man living on his own by the school children. May he rest in peace. And that's making reference to that piece on the front of the Examiner today. 1800 938 007.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tip Today on 1800 938 007.
No, large response there indeed to that conversation with Michael Collins of Independent Ireland. But Jack was on to us from Thurles, and this is following my discussion with Ger Nally of SIPTU about the possibility of Clr workers withdrawing their labour on Thursday and on many other dates over the Christmas period as well. But Jack is very concerned about this, and he thinks that lives are put at risk by workers pulling back over Christmas. Well, we'll see what happens where that is concerned. I know the HSE, Jack, and Clr have agreed to re-enter talks aimed at preventing that strike action, so we'll see what happens. Some people in Tipperary are considering giving up work to remain within the social housing income limits. That claim made by Councillor Liam Browne at the December meeting of Tipperary County Council during a discussion about social housing. And Councillor Liam Browne joins me now. Good morning to you, Liam.
Good morning, Fran, and good morning to the listeners.
Good to talk to you today. Would you just give us the background to this, Liam?
Yeah, Fran. That comment I made at the council seems to have gained a bit of traction in the media, with yourselves and some other places. I said that some people are considering giving up work. I think quite a few are, Fran, and they're not considering it, they're actually doing it. They're coming to me and they're telling me doing it. You know, we have a housing affordability crisis in Tipperary the same way as we have across the country, but it's a system that's intentionally punishing work. You know, the research has shown that the rents in Tipperary have doubled in 10 years, but the ability of people to pay their incomes have not doubled or gone anywhere near that, which means that, you know, people who are working who used to be able to afford to rent a place are now not able to afford to rent a place, or people who are a little bit below the limits for social housing. You know, if they get a couple of extra pound in a promotion, or if they get a couple of extra pound in a pay rise from an employer because of, they need to increase their ability to live. They're now going beyond threshold rates for social housing. So they're actually deciding that because there's such a jump between the cost of social housing and the cost of renting in the private sector, they don't want that extra money. That extra money is actually putting them in a seriously disadvantaged position, and they're either giving up the ability to get promoted, or they're not asking for pay rises, or in some cases that's come to me, they're actually saying that they're going to look to try to be made unemployed again, Fran, because that's the best way to get a roof over their head.
So you think we need to look at the whole HAP system again? Is that what you're advocating, Liam?
Absolutely. We need to look at not just the HAP system, but we need to look at the whole system of how we provide housing in Tipperary. Like, there's a welfare trap in Tipperary caused by the low income eligibility thresholds and the height of private rents. One of the key takeaways I got here, like a single person earning €28,000 in Tipperary qualifies for HAP and comes out with just under €17,000 disposable income. But if they earn 32,000, they go beyond the HAP limit. They lose the HAP and end up paying full market rent, leaving them with less than 17,000. So they have a 4% pay rise, which across from 28,000, a 4,000 pay rise, which is a 14% rise, now leaves them worse off. So they've less money despite working harder. So the problem is we have a cliff edge effect, where at 31,000, where once you go beyond 31,000 net income, that's it. You lose all eligibility for any social housing, and you go into a market where the rent has increased by 114% in 10 years, and we know there was a 12.5% increase at the start of 2025. The supply is not coming on track quick enough. We know that. The amount of houses that are out there, there's not enough. The amount of people looking for the houses has increased. We have issues with immigration into the county. We have issues with younger people trying to come back from abroad, trying to get houses, but they just can't afford it. So we're now ended up in a situation where when it's easier to get a house by not working than by working, Fran, we have a big problem, and that's the case in many cases.
The only thing is that the market is so cynical now, Liam. I mean, if you do raise HAP, there's a good chance the landowners will just make the rent more expensive.
And that's the unfortunate cycle we've got ourselves into, Fran. But the reality is like you take a person, say, on HAP compared to a person in a local authority house. If you're in a local authority house, you have security of tenure. You're there for life. As long as you pay your rent, you're fine. You'll be grand. And I did a quick calculation here of a person on 30,000 a year, a small household at 30,000 a year. In HAP they would pay €45 a week to the local authority, and that's it, €45 a week. In HAP at average rents at the moment, they're paying up to €157 a week, because they still have to pay the €45 on the rent differential scheme to the council, but they also have to pay the top up to the landlord. So you go from nearly 17% of your income to 55% of your income because you're on HAP. Because the HAP limits, they came out in 2015. There was a small increase in the limits that you would get in support in 2024. But the difference in the cost of rent has been going up since 2015. So there's maybe a 10% increase in HAP limits, while there's been a 110% increase in rent. The person who's paying it has to make up the difference. What
reaction are you getting from the local authority where this is concerned? What are you hearing from them?
Well, I'm speaking to them, and I'll be speaking to them again this morning. We all have a council meeting after this morning, so we'll be talking to the housing section. And they're shaking their heads, and in fairness to them, it's not their fault. These are nationally set limits. Tipperary is in Band 3, and was put into Band 3 back in 2015 when the HAP system was brought in. At the time, Tipperary was one of the lowest rent zones in the country. There was bands, there was Dublin, there was the cities, the smaller cities of Galway and Cork, whatever, put in Band 2, and places like Tipperary were regarded as rural and put into Band 3. But we're not rural anymore, Fran. You know yourself from Cashel, we're on the motorway. There's as many people getting on the motorway and heading up to Dublin in the morning, heading down to Cork or Waterford. Yeah. So they're coming back looking for rented accommodation in Cashel. So the price of rents in Cashel, as I said, have gone up from about an average of, I think, $535 in Cashel in 2015 to well over 1,400. And that's if you can get it, Fran, because, again, you'll say, if you look on daft.ie or myhome.ie, there's no houses out there, and the ones that are out there are a ridiculous price. So I'm going to the council and saying, look, you're giving somebody €550 a month of HAP support. They're having to pay $1,100 a month of actual rent, so they've got to make up the other 550 themselves. But then the 550 that you're giving them, you're taking back maybe €100 a week off them in rent. Because what happened, Fran, was when HAP came in, the rent was $535 and the council were giving them maybe $525. So you paid back the council the cost of the rent. There was no differential that you had to top up to the landlord. So you were the same, pretty much the same as if you were living in a council house. And that's the reason HAP was brought in. It was a substitute for a council house. But the difference in the meantime is that the landlords have been able to charge an extra, in some cases, €800-900 a month, because that's the cost of private rent in the sector. So you're now paying that difference along with paying the council back the rent. So, I mean, and then if you're a private tenant with no HAP at all, Fran, you could pay up to €250 a week and more in rent. So it's very unfair for somebody who's beyond the HAP limit. And like I said, you can go beyond the HAP limit at a reasonably low wage level in this country. I mean, minimum wage in the country is €14 an hour. It's 28,000. If you were in a little bit of extra overtime, if you got a little bit of extra off your employer who thinks they're helping you, to get on in life, if you get a little bit extra in a promotion, you now go beyond the HAP limit altogether and you go into the private market. So you're going from being a local authority tenant in a council house or an approved housing body house paying €45-50 a week, to being a HAP tenant paying €157 a week, to being an ordinary working person, with a working family, paying €250 a week. So those families are thinking...
And anything they might do about HAP, though, sadly, I think, Liam, is just sticking plaster stuff. Really, we just need to build houses,
We do, Fran, and I have a big issue with the whole HAP system, and I've said this in council level, and people have said to me, "Oh, we have it now, so we're kind of stuck with it." We're not. The HAP system, Fran, is basically substitution for council housing that I grew up in, and an awful lot of people listening to you and listening to me grew up in. We grew up in local authority housing right across Tipperary. Yep. We paid our rent, we got along, and we're still living there. We stopped building houses in the mid-90s, and we started to pay landlords for a substitution for council housing. And we are now ending up paying out $1.3 billion a year in housing support for HAP. In Tipperary, I don't have figures to hand me, but I know we're paying multiple millions every year in HAP to landlords. And yet the council doesn't own a brick of those houses. The state doesn't own a brick of those houses. We are literally buying houses for private individuals, and we're giving private individuals an incentive to come into the market and buy more houses because they know they can give it back to the council, and the council will rent them again, and we'll go back into the cycle again. So we have got to break the cycle, and we've got to build more local authority housing. I've said this since I became a councillor. I was saying it beforehand. People are scared now of actually making big decisions to break these cycles. We are not going to be building houses quickly enough if we don't get into this, because the houses that we are building, we're only taking 20% off private development houses. We're not building the houses that we need ourselves. Those other houses, the cost of rent is just going beyond what people can pay. I mean, I'll give you a case, Fran. You have somebody where I've dealt with, where a person in a local authority house goes into a brand new housing estate that's been built, a brand new development, because the council are taking 20% of the stock of new houses to give to social houses. Somebody in that estate could be living in a house for €50 a week rent, and the person next door who had to buy the house because they don't afford, they're earning too much to be in the HAP system, is paying maybe $1,500 a month in rent. So you're going from $200 a month in local authority rent to $1,500 a month in a mortgage in the exact same house, side by side with each other. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not blaming the person or making any judgment on the person in the local authority house. They are as much entitled to a home as everybody else. And like I said, it's terrible, Fran, when somebody is making a moral choice to become unemployed and not get on in life because they want to afford a house. But we can't have a situation where somebody's paying €1,500 a month to a mortgage against somebody who's paying €200 a month in rent beside them. And once they're in the house, Fran, they can go back working. Because, once you're paying your rent in a local authority house, you can work away. So we simply can't have a situation which allows people to make that decision, to take advantage of that decision, when others have no chance of taking advantage of it, because it's causing a lot of social problems outside of Fran.
All right, Liam, I must leave it there, but thanks very much indeed for that, and a huge response to that as well, including from the parent of a child with autism, saying they have a kind of a, an okay kind of job, but obviously trying to do as much overtime as possible to bring up the money, but then they received a letter from HAP, and now they're really, really struggling at the end of each week, and obviously Christmas looming there as well. And it says here, the government absolutely killing the honest, hard-working person, but enjoying the show as usual, Fran, says that parent to us. Now, John O'Donovan was in touch with the show this week after he attended a pro-life protest that ended rather unexpectedly. He joins me now. John, good morning to you.
Morning, Fran. How are you?
And good to talk to you again, John. Thanks for coming on with us. You were attending a pro-life protest. It was a peaceful protest. What happened, John?
Well, this came on the back of the UN has made a declaration, followed up by the EU, that the 3 days waiting where a person might consider maybe not having an abortion, which, if you remember, Fran, was part of the package what people voted on.
Sure, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So, therefore, the electors, by getting rid of the 3 days, the electors, have been disadvantaged, lied to, betrayed, because that's what they voted on. So we took ourselves up, myself and 2 girls, up to the COH, and, the exclusion zones were brought in by Stephen Donnelly, which should never be brought in the first place, because to me they're unconstitutional. And we took up our position there. Now, I was the first to do 1 shift, and then there was supposed to be 2 more after that. And it was there about half an hour, and the guards arrived, and the guards read me the Riot Act and told me that I was breaking the law. There was exclusion zones there. No, I had a copy of Bunnocknahearn, the Constitution of Ireland, with me, and in that, and Article 44, Paragraph 3, the state shall not impose any disabilities or make any discrimination on the grounds of religious profession, belief or status. And that's all religions, not just the Christian, the Catholic Church, or whatever, Fran, all religions. I pointed out to the guard, I said, the exclusion zones, I said, the Constitution usurps that any time, because I have it here. And he said, show it to me. I said, I refused to show it to him, Fran, for the simple reason. I said, you're a member of the law. I said, you should have studied this like in Templemore, right? I shouldn't be educating you here now. You should know this stuff already. It shouldn't be up to me.
Right, but would you not have shown it to him, John? Wouldn't that have been practical if he wasn't across that on the day?
Well, I got the feeling no matter what I said, that look, if I wasn't going to move, I was going to be arrested. Simple as that. He was giving no quarter whatsoever. So it went on for quite a while, and it was done on a live podcast as well. And the whole thing is that I said to him, look, the Constitution, I said, I'm protected under that. I said, we're just standing here where the sign says, pray. There's a big white cross, I said, and it says, pray because abortion is wrong. And I said, you're telling me that we haven't the right to do that. He says, no, you haven't. You can go 200 metres down in either direction of the hospital, but you can't stand where you are outside the gates there. When it went back and forth for quite a while. And as I said to him as well, look, there's other people coming into the country. They have rights for bending over backwards. I'm a sovereign Irish citizen protected by my Constitution. I'm a practicing Catholic, baptised, and you're telling me I haven't got the right to stand here with a cross praying for the unborn.
Yeah, because in Bunnocknahearn, I'm just reading it here in front of me, John, it says protests can be regulated or curtailed if they become disruptive, if they threaten public peace, or involve unlawful activity. So you didn't tick any of those boxes, obviously.
No, we didn't, because the former commissioner, if you remember, Drew Harris, he said when that first came up, before they were implemented, he said there was no reason for them, because he observed people in Harris Street and in Dublin and other places. He said, well, people just praying peacefully, either with a cross or a rosary or whatever, maybe a plaque, protect life or whatever. He said they were completely peaceful. There was no complaints came in about any antisocial behaviour, about intimidation or bullying, harassment of anyone going to know the hospital. People are just standing there praying. And he had no time for them. Look, I know he had a lot of faults as regards the guards in the bit, but the man was a decent man when it came to this. But I mean, I have the commission, the superintendent of my own neck of the woods. I asked for an appointment to see him, And then if I don't get any satisfaction there, we'll be going into Angus Street to the headquarters and then all the way to Mr. Kelly, the new commissioner. And we'll also get legal advice on this, because this, to me, Fran, is completely
unconstitutional. And did you get, I can't seem to find any legal advice around the notion of an exclusion zone and how that is imposed and what is the legal framework to that. Do you know what that is?
Well, the legal framework is that, nobody's supposed to be in any form protesting outside a GP, any clinic that's involved in abortion, or any hospital, right? But to me, that completely, it's contrary to the Constitution, Fran. And no, we're precluded now as baptised Christians, for to pray outside a facility like this. We're not harassing or annoying anyone. It's a silent protest. We're just there for the unborn, and that's it. And we now have no rights to do that. But to me, the Constitution comes first, and it's written in the Constitution that we have a right to do this.
Yeah, but I presume there must be some legal... Is there legislation around there? I just can't it's just not coming to hand at the moment.
There was nobody looking at this. Look, Stephen Donnelly brought this in, and just like Simon Harris, this one of the saddest days of my whole existence was the day that the result came in of Dublin Castle, with the crowds are inside there, whooping and cheering and doing the conga, overlooked up on the platform by one Simon Harris, the no tarnished, right, who was rabid as the Minister for Health and his pursuit of the unborn, and Leo Varadkar and Catherine Noon. And they were up there on top of some kind of a makeshift kind of a scaffold or whatever, and all the crowd cheering below. I mean, this is cheering the death of the future citizens of Ireland.
Right. And you're perfectly entitled to that view, and that's how you view it. But this, whether you like it or whether we like it or not, this is democracy. This is democracy at work, John.
This is what the problem is, you see, when people voted, Fran, again, as I said, people voted on the 3 days because it has been well documented now by consultants that the 3 days has saved a lot of lives. People have rethink this, and we see the case there recently there where the family there was a settlement made by the HSE where they were told that their child had no quality of life and it was best to abort, and they went along with that. And when the test came back after from Scotland and places, they found out the child was perfect. The child was taken and there was nothing wrong with that child. That child should be alive today. But I mean, the whole thing is, look, it's just keep down on top of anything to do with pro-life. Like, I had an altercation with Micheál Martin on Saturday. He was in an event inside in town in Partick Street, and I put this to him as well. I told him straight out, Fran, I said, why did you do it? You were once pro-life. Why did you change your mind? And he couldn't answer me, he couldn't. He said, and his answer actually was, Fran, he said, I'm not going over all that again. And another dismissive commentary. Well, I said, it doesn't suit you to go over it. I said, Taoiseach, but it suits me because I'm pro-life and you're pro-abortion. That's the difference between you and me.
Leanne is putting up some stuff here. Seemingly you cannot protest directly outside of a GP surgery if the protest is related to the provision of abortion services due to the recent legislation, and there is legislation seemingly around that notion of the exclusion zone or the safe access zones there, and that legislation came into effect in October 2024. So the guards were in their rights to keep you outside of that zone, see, John.
Look, as I pointed out to the guards, they said, you're doing a job here today, right? You're telling me that this exclusion zones exist and there's no law. But there's a higher law, and it's put up here, the Constitution. And I just read out Article 44 there, Paragraph 3, which gives me the right, and anyone else, it doesn't matter whether you're the Islamic faith, whether you're the Jewish faith, the Catholic faith, the right to practice our faith and to pray in public. And that means to pray anywhere. And that to me,
right, but my only point, and I mean, I'm taking on board what you're saying to me, but the legislation is there. So, in fairness, the Gardaí were in their rights to keep you outside of it, according to the legislation.
They were, but you see, they're imposing what they believe to be their right, impose the law. But what about my rights? What about the pro-life people that are silently praying? They're doing no harm to anyone, right? We have rights under the Constitution, but now it looks like just this vindictive a law that was brought in by one Stephen Donnelly, children's minister, who's now gone from Dalian, thank God. But I mean, like, to me, it was vindictive. Like, if anything, again, as I said, it's like the 3 days waiting. God forbid that the unborn child, that someone might change their mind and keep the child or give the child up for adoption. But do anything you can to stop. And if you go into the My Options, even on the HSE website, Fran, put in My Options, the first thing you agree to it, right, is no other alternative. Only it's abortion services straight away. Nothing about the state will give you help if you want to keep the child, or if the child wants to be put up for adoption. No, straight away.
Well, there are organisations there who are willing to give that kind of advice and help, John.
Well, they are, but I mean, like the HSE, so if I give you options, that means that you have choices, Fran. But I mean, when you go into My Options, the first thing you agreed to it was abortion straight away. I mean, that's wrong, like, as well.
And I know you're aware that independent review into the abortion legislation recommended that there would be a removal of the mandatory 3-day waiting period. So that's an independent review.
And the problem is, getting back to this, is what people voted on. People voted on stuff like this. That the 3 days waiting was a big part of why a lot of people voted.
Right.
Like, I mean,
and you're saying they're changing the goalposts on that now? Is that it?
Yeah. And look, I mean, the way it's heading, like it's like Canada and places like that, where it'll be right up to Burke. Like, I mean, and look, we're never giving up anyway. Like, and we're never going away, because like somebody has to stand up for the unborn child. Like, I mean, but if that has to be us, well, so be it. All
right, John, thanks for coming on with us today. That's John O'Donovan speaking to us there. How do you feel about that? 083 311 3311.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24 111.
Thanks, Pat. Welcome back to the second hour of Tip Today. Now, some reaction there. First of all, to John O'Donovan, who spoke to us about his protest in Dublin, the pro-life protest. One of our listeners on to say they should have locked him up and thrown away the key. He's a pain in the arse telling women what to do. Isn't he bullying women standing outside of the clinic? Well, he would say no. He was out there with whoever he was with, and they were praying, but obviously he was inside the exclusion zone, which is why the Gardaí got involved there. Liam was on to say, Fran, the Constitution is a great paper or book, but like all law, we move on from 1922 or whenever we have amendments. So on this occasion, the Gardaí were right. While I sympathise with that man, we did vote, be it right or wrong. We voted, says Liam to us today. Okay, lots more coming in on that, but let me move on, because as many of you are aware, Tipperary was rocked by tragedy last weekend. 3 lives lost in 2 separate traffic incidents. Now, Sharon Cleary from Clogjordan reached out to the show yesterday, sharing her own experience of loss and grief following the heartbreaking death of her 16-year-old son in a car crash. And Sharon joins me now. Sharon, good morning to you.
Morning, Fran. How are you?
Well, more importantly, Sharon, how are you? And, you know, hearing that horror from over the weekend, it must have brought it all back to you, did it?
Absolutely. Those families, it is so tough on them. They have a long road ahead, and it doesn't get easier. You learn to live with it, but unfortunately you just don't get over it. And my thoughts are with those today.
Would you take me back, if you would, Sharon, to 2017 and to your 16-year-old son? Could you just give me the background to what happened?
I can indeed, yes. Adam had never went in a car with anybody before, aside from ourselves. That day I had went into Birr to get meals for cattle, and when I came back, Adam had left a note, gone cruising back before 9. he had lost his phone, and he had sent my husband the same message on his tablet, the exact same wording. I had no idea who he was with. We had moved up to Tipperary a year prior, and Adam was in secondary school in Birr, and it was his friend had asked him to go in the car with a driver an adult. Adam didn't know the driver. He had no driver's license, speeding. The car had no NCT. The tyres were on the car since 1997. An extremely unroadworthy car. They were not far from home. I actually, that day, came home that road. It was the old road to Clough-Jordan, and I rarely go that road. I would have passed only a short few minutes prior to the crash. Our local community guard came into the yard. I was outside playing with my younger daughter and my stepson, and I seen the guard coming in, and my husband just arrived in from work around the same time, and I just knew. I don't know why. I guess the mother's instinct. I fell to the ground, and the guard didn't have to tell me. But yet, a few minutes later, I had to ask him just to confirm my thoughts, and I was correct. Adam had been killed. He was a backseat passenger. They hit a tree just outside Cloughjordan, and Adam was killed instantly.
And you say you had a mother's instinct on this, Sharon. You knew that he was dead, but you needed confirmation then from the what goes. It's a really stupid question, but it's very hard to understand. What goes through somebody's head when you get that kind of news, Sharon?
It's actually a good question. I don't know what went through my head. I can remember everything everybody said in the following few days, everything. But at that moment, I cannot even answer what went through my head, to be honest. I have no idea. I think I just went blank. I was just numb.
What happened then about, you have all the practicalities then, all the arrangements and that. Can you remember how that happened, Sharon, and how that was organised? And
I can. My husband and myself, we had to follow Adam in a hearse to Limerick Regional Hospital, to the morgue there, and we met my cousin there. She's a nurse down there, and she was amazing to be there with us. Following on, we had to make contact with undertakers. I had to break the news to my parents, to my mother, her pride and joy, and my daughter. She was 5 years old. It is very, very hard to do, and I will never forget those moments.
And does it all happen in a blur then, Sharon? The funeral, meeting people, people sympathising and...
Absolutely. I can remember every word, everything. It was just nothing passed me, and I wanted to know every detail. But yet, for the following year, my life was a blur, and I remember Mother's Day the following March, and it was like I woke up. It was like I had slept from that June until the following March, it was just, my life was a complete blur, yes.
You then had to go through the whole court case thing where the driver was up in court, and the outcome of that you were not at all happy with, Sharon.
That's correct. The driver was given 3.5 years, 7 years off the road. He'd done 9 months of that sentence. I am still doing a life sentence. I'm the one doing that life sentence. There is no justice.
And the judge would have had an opportunity, I think, to imprison the driver for a much longer period.
Of course, absolutely. We need longer sentences. We need to make examples of dangerous driving, of drink driving, drug driving, mobile phones, whatever it may be. We need less leniency on our roads. We need to prevent these crashes. There is no excuse.
You said you said lots of interesting things and amazing insight into tragedy, but you said your heart goes out to the family of the guy who was driving, but you said you could never, ever forgive him.
No, I can't.
And you could never accept an apology from him.
Absolutely not. It's a case of, if there's a difference between a crash and an accident. An accident, if somebody genuinely knocks somebody down, or an accidental crash. But when you go out and you're speeding in a car that is not roadworthy, and other factors as well, there is no excuse for that. So I can't forgive that. Maybe if it was the opposite way around, where it was genuinely an accident and there was no dangerous driving, maybe then I could. But no, under the circumstances, I can't.
The milestones along the way, I mean, you mentioned Mother's Day there, but I mean, we're coming up to Christmas. Obviously, you had birthdays and the like. And how difficult are they? I mean, Christmas time, let's take that first, Sharon. Is that particularly difficult?
It is. It's extremely difficult. Every year, around 4 o'clock on Christmas Day, we go up to the grave, and you learn to live with it. You just don't get over it. Every day is different. I am fine right now. I could get off this phone to you and I could break down. And every moment is different. Something may remind you, there may be some little thing, but milestones like Christmas, birthdays, Adam's 21st, his 18th, every turn, our wedding day, everything that he is missing in life. We've moved house since then. Adam had his bedroom picked out. He has younger siblings now, and he never got to meet them. They know all about him, but, there's so many milestones that he's missed. And
the Sharon Cleary that I'm speaking to now, are you a completely different person?
Absolutely.
Are you?
Yes. Absolutely. Yes. I'm a lot more emotional. Things bother me a lot more. I'm not as tough a person as I was. It has completely changed me. I fear for my children. Some days I worry about my children all the time, but there's days, if the school bus was late, I am completely stressing. I'm looking out the window. I'm panicking. I worry that something may happen to. I have a fear of my own children as they get older, going out in a car. I dread that my daughter, she was 5 when Adam, and she's 14 now. I am dreading the day she gets her licence. I know I can't stop that. I know she's a very, very bright girl. She's aware of road safety. But I have a fear, and it's huge, and as I do for my other children also.
We were talking about milestones there, but I know that you got his exam results shortly after he died as well, and they were remarkable results, weren't they? He was a bright young lad, wasn't he?
Yes, indeed. Adam was very, very bright. I was so proud of his junior cert results. He passed away on the 1st of August, and on the 15th of September, the principal of Burr Community School and one of his teachers came out and they gave me his results and some of his work. He had made a table and a little car and things like that, which are all so important to me now. And he done remarkable. Adam had a very bright future ahead of him. Unfortunately, his life was needlessly taken too early.
It would be easy for you, I suppose, to stay at home and deal with your grief privately, Sharon, but I know that you're kind enough to talk to us today, and I know you take part in campaigns as well about road safety. How important is that to you, to share like this?
It is so important to me. It's in Adam's memory, but also any opportunity I get or I'm asked to speak or partake in a campaign or speak to yourself or whoever it may be, I jump at the chance, simply because if my story, Adam's story and that of our family helps one person slows down on the road, takes more heed, well then I am happy to do it, and anything I can do in that sense, I will not refuse.
What are you seeing on the roads out there? Because I presume I bet you take notice of everything that happens as you're travelling yourself down, some of the madness that's out there on the roads. What are you seeing, Sharon, at the moment?
It's absolutely crazy, Fran. Yesterday morning, for example, I was going to Portumna to meet my friend, and as I was coming back, I was in the 30 zone, and there was another car in front of me, and a silver Golf passed me out, and it was not doing 60. I'd say it was a lot more. The speed, they lost me a short time later. They were just gone for dust. That's only one example, but it's continuous. In the village I live here in South Jordan, I was pulling away from my daughter's preschool one day last week, and I seen a lady driving down the street with her very young baby on her lap. That is not excusable. There is no excuse. It's crazy what people think is okay to do.
And we're reading today in the papers that the numbers are gone up again this year. There's more killed so far this year than there was in the entire 12 months of last year. So we're not listening. Sure, we're not. We're not listening to the advice. We're not.
We're really not listening. We need to take more responsibility. You hear of the likes of the Irish Road Victims Association, IRVA, the likes of the RSA. They're constantly trying to promote road safety. But if you go and look at some comments on the RSA page, they're always being dissed and they're being blamed for road safety. But we as individuals, like the RSA is not getting in a car beside us. We as individuals have to take responsibility when we get into a motorised vehicle that is so dangerous if not correctly used. So the responsibility is on everybody.
Sharon, it was so good of you to take time out for us today, because that can't have been easy to do. But thank you so much for your time, Sharon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fran. And again, my sympathies to the families.
Thank you. Good morning to you. That's Sharon Cleary there speaking to us about the loss of her 16-year-old son, as he was at the time back in 2017. 1800 938 007. Listener on to say, good morning, Leanne and Fran. My heart breaks for the poor woman who lost her 16-year-old son and for the tragic losses recently. My 19-year-old son wrote his car off hitting a tree a few weeks back. He's now in a back brace for 3 months with broken vertebrae. No car, no job, but I count my blessings every day that he still has his life. Somebody else says to us, my mum was killed by a drunk driver 39 years ago, and it still haunts me. And he got, I'm not sure, there's a bit of confusion just with the text about what he got up in court because of it. But anyway, that's a listener who's dragged back to that tragic time with our conversation today. How do you feel about that? 083 311 3311.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, puck on. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Yeah, thanks so much to that listener who got back to me. I was telling you there, listener got in touch to say my mum was killed by a drunk driver 39 years ago, and just a bit of clarification on that. So it was 39 years ago. The drunk driver was fined £20 for dangerous driving, but no jail time whatsoever. 083 311 3311. Now, Gareth Landy and his wife bought a second-hand car last year, but that purchase turned into a bit of a nightmare. Let's find out more. Gareth joins me now. Good morning to you, Gareth.
Good morning, Fran. How are you?
I'm well indeed. Good to talk to you today. Will you tell me about what happened? Yourself and your wife, you bought a car.
That's correct. So I'll very briefly, my wife and I bought a Citroen C1. It's a compact city car. It's a little small petrol engine.
I know them well, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of them on the road. They're also called Peugeot 108s and a Toyota Aggo or Agro or something like that. So it's a small car. There's loads of them on the roads in Ireland. I contacted our garage here and asked them about what they would recommend for a second-hand car. We needed a small runaround. Where we live, public transport is very poor. They said these cars are great, are very reliable, and all the rest of it. So we started looking, and I myself, it's hard to believe my accent, I actually grew up in Northern Ireland. So I started looking on cars in Northern Ireland, and I found this car, and was advertised as a C1 2012, 70,000 miles in it, new clutch, and it's being sold by a dealer. So we went up to Northern Ireland. We test drove the vehicle. I'll be honest, I don't really know anything about vehicles, neither does my wife, and we felt, you know what, it's a good deal. So we bought the vehicle. I can't remember what it was, maybe $3,500 to $4,000. I can't remember that euro was sterling. Anyway, that's beside the point. We bought the car down. We began all the import duty stuff on it, paid the VRT. It went for its first NCT. We felt this was merely a formality because it had, by the way, a valid MOT. It went...
Which is the Northern Ireland or the British equivalent of an NCT, just for listeners. Yes.
Yeah, for the listeners.
Yeah.
So that was the reason we bought it. A low mileage, new clutch, had a valid MOT. We felt it's a formality. It went for its first NCT, first, by the way, and it failed. And it failed for 7 major structural reasons. We then had the vehicle repaired. We bought it for its second NCT on the 13th of December at 5 major failures. Again, we had the vehicle repaired, and it went for its third NCT on the 13th of January this year, and it passed. So finally, all the money we'd spent, it passed. Then this summer, everyone has done it. I've done it. My wife made the biggest mistake ever, which I can honestly say probably saved our lives. She accidentally put diesel into the car. It's petrol. The car was recovered to a garage. She didn't start the engine. And when the guys were draining the fuel from the mixed fuel in the tank, they discovered major structural failure in this vehicle. Like, dreadful.
Like that could have cost you your lives, sort of structural
seriously,
issue.
Yeah, it was so bad. They actually said, we can't repair this vehicle. You need to bring it to an auto body repair centre, to which I did. And the guy I since shared the content with yourselves earlier last week. Like, there's steel had fallen out of the car. It's a joke. And the guy said the car was so structurally corroded, maybe there's a term, that we could have driven off a high curb or hit a pothole and the car could have split in half.
Wow.
Like, this car had 4 national car tests within a year, 1 in Northern Ireland and 3 down here. And when it happened, the car still had a valid NCT. And it's just a joke. Like, when the car failed its first NCT, I contacted the authorities in Northern Ireland about it. I went to the MOT. I got a poor response from them. I then contacted the Northern Ireland Ombudsman about it. Again, another poor response. And when we discovered all these major problems with the vehicle this year, I then contacted the NCT about it. Again, another poor response. I was left chasing them. And then I got onto the RSA about it, and the RSA didn't even respond to me. They responded through a TD. And last week or maybe the week before, I made a decision to then email every single TD in the country about this, because this is just a disgrace. This is a joke.
And what response did you get from the TDs?
The TDs, it's been a mixed response, I'll be honest. And when people are listening to this, I've had responses from TDs saying, I have to live in their consistency before they'll act. That's avoidance. That's ridiculous. Like, I don't want to make a joke out of it, but you can drive from where I live into their consistency being a car accident. Do they think that's acceptable? Someone has to be in a car accident before they'll act.
Well, certainly a very strange excuse. Can I take you back to the initial testing by the NCT? Did you say it failed on some structural issues?
7 major structural issues. 7.
Right.
I have them. I actually have all the bits here in front of me.
And,
go ahead.
And after a couple of other failures, then you went back and they passed the car.
That's correct.
Right. So they didn't spot the main structural issue, which could have been life-threatening.
Yeah, so even looking here at the official NCT report here, the subframe had to be replaced. Now, I've become a bit of an expert in cars because of this. My understanding is that the subframe is where the engine bay sits, and then that is bolted to the main car. And in the first NCT, this is highlighted the subframe. The subframe was so corroded, we had to get a new one ordered from France. Like, this is how deteriorated this vehicle was. Some of the thing was offside front, advanced corrosion, near side front, left, advanced corrosion, offside rear, advanced corrosion, like right down to the issues with the brake pipes, brake lines. Like, I'm not sure exactly where all these bits are.
So are we talking about rust here? Is that what we're talking
severe, about? Yeah, rust.
Okay.
Severe corrosion.
Right,
yeah.
And there's not a danger that the car was involved in some sort of a collision that would have had it written off or something like that? No, it wasn't that.
No, when I began this investigation, we were able to then access, we didn't know this at the time, you can do this, you can access previous MOTs. I didn't know you could do this. And there were issues highlighted with this car 2 or 3 years ago, or 3 or 4 years ago now, in the MOT, when I went for MOTs in other parts of the UK. But when we were sold a vehicle, we were not told, oh, by the way, there were issues with this vehicle. We weren't told about that.
And what is there an obligation on a garage to tell you that?
That, Fran, is a very good question. I don't know. I have actually come up with some proposals that, because of I'll be honest, the avoidance, I've been to 4 official bodies on the island of Ireland about this, 2 in Northern Ireland and 2 down here, the Republic. And there is just avoidance, there is deflection at every opportunity. A citizen shouldn't have to go to contact every single TD in the country. Like, it would be different if the RSA turned around and put their hands up saying, we made a mistake, what can we learn from this? I've had no apology, nothing from them.
Yeah, the response from the car testing service is kind of interesting, though, and it's kind of complex. But really, they're saying it's not our problem.
Yeah, like they attempt to shift blame to the garage. The garage discovered their failure. It's now somehow their fault. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, I can't understand why we have a national car test if when major issues are discovered, no one wants to know. Like, this is a national disgrace. Like, some of the proposals that I've come up with, which some people are going to think this is crazy. Like, one of the ones is like to maybe potentially temporarily ban the import of vehicles from Northern Ireland and the UK. Like, I'm not trying to destroy people's businesses, far from it, but people are going to be injured and killed in vehicles that are coming in that are supposedly have a valid MOT, and then if the MOT is not worth the paper it's printed on. The other proposal I have is to have a proper cross-border implementation of the law. The dealer, like, I'm not, of course, not going to say his name, but the dealer has completely ghosted us. He's stopped. He responded to all our calls, texts, emails. I've had a letter sent him by solicitor, no response. And I feel that he thinks he can get away with what he's done because he lives in Northern Ireland, which is a different jurisdiction, apologies, to the Republic of Ireland.
Yeah, it's a most interesting case, I think. And could I get you to respond just to a little piece of what the car testing service said to you? They noted that when remedial work was being conducted between inspections, your mechanic did not note the corrosion during his examination of the vehicle. This would have been a strong indicator that the current corrosion was either not present at that time or was not an issue. But I mean, it was so profound, the corrosion, that couldn't have been the case.
I know. Like, you're going to find this very interesting. I've worked out, I honestly should be a journalist at this stage, that when the car went for its NCT on the 13th of January, okay, for people listening, the car is in miles, not in kilometres, so it had 74,638 miles. When we discovered this issue with the vehicle, it was the 18th of August this year. The car had 79,391 miles on it. That is a difference of 4,753 miles. So a car in 7 to 8 months, that's all it drove. There's no way this vehicle corroded. Like what's it say about cars in Ireland, that if they hit a certain age of, like, this is a 2012 car, that if they hurt like at a certain age, the car pretty much turns to dust. Like, our other car is a 2013 car. That is a UK import. I have 162,000 miles in that car. That car has not corroded. This does not make sense.
I mean, I think the big question here is that the NCT test, I mean, its reason for existence is to make sure that cars are safe on our roads.
Yeah.
And they missed something huge where your car was concerned.
Yes, and it is so frustrating. I'm exhausted from this. I've been doing this for months, and I've been bounced from one body to the next. In the latest response that I got, frankly, some TDs have been very, very supportive of this, have asked questions to the Minister of Transport. And I got a response that was sent to a TD, again, not to me, saying that I should contact another body about this. I'm not going to a fifth body. I've been to 4, including the RSA, and they don't want to know.
So what do you do now, Gareth? What are you going to do?
Well, I got a call yesterday from a TD that's involved in the Transport Committee, and he's talking tomorrow to some of his colleagues about this. And I'm just pushing on this. Like, either A, the NCT wasn't done properly, or B, the NCT is a European directive. So either A, it wasn't done properly in this centre, or B, there's a major issue in the implementation of this European directive across the EU that I've uncovered. I find it hard to believe that it's B. I find it's more like A. So I don't know what I'll do.
Well, Gareth, if it's okay, we'll continue to follow that story with you, because I would like to find out how it turns out in the end. But it's going to be very interesting. Look after yourself and be safe on the roads anyway, Gareth, and thank you for sharing the story. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Good morning to you. That's Gareth there speaking about, it's an exciting time when you buy either a new car or a second-hand car, and I love cars, so, and when you hear then it turns into a complete and absolute nightmare. We'll take a break, back in just a moment.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp Today on 1-800-938-007. Join the conversation in Tipperary. Contact us through Facebook, Twitter, or email tiptoday@tippfm.com.
Now, to promote conversational Irish in the county, a pop-up Gaeltacht event is being held in the Burkes pub in Thurles this Thursday from 8:30. And Dan Harty is one of the organisers even, and Dan's a regular contributor to the show, and he joins me now. Good morning to you, Dan.
The good Fran, August Luctation of Cllr Liam Browne.
Good, Dan. Will you tell me what is this about? Conversational Irish, Dan. What kind of level of Irish would you need to take part?
I just for a second, Fran, I just wanted to have a comment on your last speaker there, Gareth Andy. I'm actually working with Gareth at the moment, and I've asked Minister for Transport, Sharon O'Brien, to have a look at the NCC system and a review, because I do think he has a very strong case. I just wanted to say that first, but I suppose in terms of the pop-up Gaeltacht, there seems to be a great resurgence and growing interest in the Irish language, both nationally and in here in Mid-Tipperary. We've held these pop-up Gaeltachts before. I usually hold one annually around Shotton and the Gaeilge, but we're kind of hoping to expand it out and maybe do it quarterly. There's already a number of conversational groups locally. The Bookworm in Thurles hold a Cora conversation group every Tuesday morning at 11 o'clock. There's also Caution Irene out in Jim of the Mills. She's holding classes at the moment for beginners and for more advanced speakers. And the hope is there, I suppose, is to kind of build an Irish language speaking community locally. So there's a couple of groups there, and they're kind of operating independently in a way. And I suppose the idea is that we might try and get them all in together. To try and build, to get more people involved.
I think it's fantastic, and there's no agenda to this. This is just about the language. There's nothing political about this, Dan, or anything like that.
Absolutely, absolutely not, Fran. I held it in conjunction before with Clavcular. The Moon was in Thurles there a couple of years back. We held one around that, and we like to hold it around Shots in the Gaeilge and around the St. Patrick's Day Festival in Thurles as well. There's a Gael School in Thurles as well, and it's long established since the early 90s. So, there's thousands of students who've gone through that. I suppose the thing is, if you don't use it, you lose it. And people don't really have the opportunity to use their Quig Gaeilge. And it's a great shame, because why spend so many years, I suppose, in a class environment learning the Irish, and then when you leave, there's no opportunity to speak it. So I suppose it's just giving people an opportunity to come in.
You see, the nature of how it was taught over the years, Dan, it often put people off, the language, which was a pity. What happened where you're concerned yourself? I mean, did you always love the language? Did you continue to speak it after school, or did you come back to it?
I did continue to speak it to a certain degree, but I did lose it for a good number of years. I am coming back to it now, and I'm trying to get involved with Irish language speaking groups.
Yeah,
and it's something I'm very something very proud of and passionate about. There's great potential for it here. I was just looking back, just there. The Tipperary dialect would have been lost, obviously, because the Irish language, there's no native speakers in Tipperary anymore. But there was actually up until the 1940s, up in the Knockmeal Downs and a few other other areas, and there's actually recordings of the old Tipperary dialect, I suppose.
Oh, that's very interesting. I know there was Gaeltacht area up around Newcastle and but I didn't realise there was a particular dialect.
Yes, well, obviously, like you'd have a Connemara dialect, and obviously your Donegal dialect. Obviously, previously, long ago, there would have been a certain Tipperary dialect, but now that's obviously lost, and I suppose that's a great tragedy. But there is recordings of it there that you can listen to. Somebody recorded them in the 1930s. They're well worth listening to anyone that has an interest in it.
There's
actually
very
a great book
interesting
there as well. It's called Unglaun. It's a rev own by Seamus O'Mayo-Cahig. If anyone has an interest in researching it, it's very interesting indeed. But look, as you say, it's for people for all levels of Irish. You don't have to have any sort of fluency going into it. If you have your cúpla focal, you just want to even listen to the Irish conversation. There'll probably be a few songs on the night, maybe a couple of poems and stories and stuff like that.
And do you find, Dan, that we have an awful lot more Irish than we think we have?
Absolutely, yeah. I think people have it in the back of their mind. And when you hear it, it might be hard to speak. Confidence has a large part to do with it.
Yeah.
And I could speak maybe Irish to you, and you understand what I was saying, but you mightn't be able to reply to me.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of it. But it all comes with practice and experience. And when you're sitting around a conversation, you'd actually be surprised what vocabulary you have and what would come out of your mouth. So it's about giving people that opportunity, giving them that space. It's friendly. It's there's no pressure on anybody, and we have a lot of Irish speakers, and I'd call on Muntori Gaelga, and there's a lot of Irish teachers around, and I'd love to see them come in as well and try and build a bit of a community around, and it is a great laugh.
Yeah, I think it's a lovely idea. And do you have to register ahead of time, or can you just turn up, or what's the story there, Dan?
Oh no, there's no registration. It's just in the Burkas pub. You can come in, you can have a few drinks. There's teas and coffees there as well. It's a very relaxed atmosphere. You can just sit in to listen to a conversation group, and if you feel confident to join in, you can. And there could be a couple of Irish tunes there. It's nice to listen to as well, and some old Irish songs. And it's a great experience, and it's something I suppose that's unusual, and it's something that we hope to keep going over the next couple of years.
I think it's great. What is driving this upsurge in popularity for the native tongue? What do you think that is about?
It's hard to put your finger on it, Fran, I suppose. So there was a lot of negativity, as you said, around Irish and the way it was taught, and it was forced on people, and that didn't go down well, and people were uncomfortable with that. I don't know. It seems to be more. I don't know. Is there kind of a nationalistic drive behind it?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's very important. Your native tongue. You see people from other countries there, and small countries as well, but they're very proud of their language. They can also speak. They can speak English. They can speak multiple languages. And I suppose it's Irish people. I feel a bit embarrassed that they can't speak their own native tongue.
Yeah, we're not natural linguists though here, are we, Dan? We're a little bit lazy maybe because we speak English, and so many other places you get away with English. So
I know, and that's easy to do. If you go in holidays to Spain or anything like that, Spanish will speak to you in English, and it's just easy. It's just easier to speak English. But no, there's a certain resurgence around it, I suppose. The likes of Kneecap, and you see a lot of famous Irish actors in that. Cillian Murphy in that. Yeah. Starting to use English, use the language, and it's starting to become cool, I suppose, again. And I suppose the young people have a different attitude probably to the older generation, and I think that's very, very important, and we need to kind of nourish that, and hopefully we can. I'm
delighted to hear it's happening. So the Burkas pub, which is a gorgeous pub by the way, and they do a great pint in there as well. So that's
exactly.
this coming Thursday night. It's 8:30, I think, Dan. Is it?
It is 8:30 in the Burkas pub, and everybody's welcome, and anyone with a bit of Irish or
anyone looking to learn, I'd love to see them there and encourage them to come along.
All right, Gur Míle Maith good Dan Slán. Thanks very much
Míle
indeed. Thank you.
Míle Maith, Fran.
Bye-bye. That's Dan Harty speaking to us there. The Burkers Pub this Thursday night, 8:30 for the Cllavcular. News and information is coming up.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24 111.
Thanks, Pat, and welcome back to the final hour of Tip Today. Huge reaction about the whole NCT thing, and we've really opened a can of worms there because people have a lot of issues with NCT. Well, God knows I have a lot of issues with NCT myself, but don't get me started. Anyway, if you want to email us about your experience with NCT, we will get back to it at some point or other. So that's tiptoday@tipfm.com.
Legal discussion on Tip Today is brought to you in association with Lynch Solicitors Clonmel on the web at lynchsolicitors.ie and at divorceineireland.com.
John Lynch is with me in studio. Good morning to you, John.
Good morning. That you're in city on your car yourself.
Oh, look, if it was on myself, it definitely wouldn't pass. There would be structural issues, I think, there. But there you go. You're going to have a look back at some of the legal highlights or lowlights maybe as well? No? Highlights?
No. I look to the highs, not the lows.
You're going to tell me you're a positive person now, an optimist and all of that.
Yes, all that, Jeff. I'm sure what's the point? Negativity doesn't get you anywhere.
Absolutely, yes. So legal highlights then, John?
Yeah. One of the biggest things that I think, it's not a highlight, it's a highlight, I suppose, in everything now. It's AI and its implications for the legal profession and its adoption by the legal profession. And, it's something that I've been kind of, going to say playing with, but
yeah, you embrace this very early on,
well, I've always been a big advocate of technology being a useful tool in everyday life, and sure we've seen it. Sure, it's been dramatic, the kind of impact it's had on our lives, positive and obviously negative as well. AI, I think, poses a particular challenge. As one fella said to me during the year when I sent him out something, he said, was that AI generated? And I said, no, actually that's one of my own blogs, but I've no doubt that somebody's going to download it and AI it, and it's probably because it's in the ether, because a lot of my blogs over the years is on the internet.
Right.
There's no doubt but that some part of my blog will find its way to somebody's AI generated document at some stage. But it's fascinating as to how, I'm reading a book at the moment on it, and all of the things that I've kind of considered to be the issues in it are there and are going to be multiplied by an incremental number that you can pick, whatever number you want to pick, because of how far-reaching it is. And I mean, it took us a few years to realise that Google and various other large corporations were using our information and making a considerable amount of money out of it. And AI is no different.
Yeah. But even worse, isn't it? Because it's soaking up everything.
It's literally, it's like a vacuum cleaner, but like a vacuum cleaner, it's taken a lot of
all the other stuff
dross with it as well. Yeah. But where it is hugely useful is, I've always considered that I'd love to practice law and not get bogged down in what are the side issues to get into the actual practice of law.
Well, the mundane stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then the mundane stuff is essential at the outset, and you can't get to the non-mundane stuff without going through the mundane. Like, there's no shortcut for studying the law, there's no shortcut for reading the material, but unfortunately AI will produce a shortcut for you, because what AI will do is and this is the danger in it, is it will give you I mean, down the years, you've always had to deal with bar stool lawyers. And the fella in the pub saying, "Oh, I had one of them cases, and this is how I would do it." And that's fair enough. And I have never had an issue with somebody telling me that somebody told them something, because at the end of the day, it's all part of the information process. But if somebody is now going to start coming into me talking about, well, actually, not only did they Google it, but they AI'd it, and AI tells me this. And that produces, that in itself produces a challenge. But just to get down to where it's starting to have an impact in the legal arena. First of all, apparently you've now got in the States, which where all the stats are, 87% of lawyers actually use it, and use it to some degree or other. It's a bigger take up in the smaller firms, niche firms, than it is in the larger firms, because of all the really difficult issues to deal with in a large firm. It's becoming very much part of the research side of things.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you specifically.
Yeah.
What areas of what you do is AI helpful in?
Research, even to the point of reminding you as to what the elements of something are. So if I want to say, what are the basic rules of contract? What are the fundamental rules of contract? I can put that into ChatGPT, Gemini, DeepSeek, you name it, and it'll come out with different, answers to what that is.
And can you trust it?
Well, let me put it this way, and that's the interesting point. It's the same as you listen to a chord. I mean, if you've never played an instrument and you ask ChatGPT or whatever it is to give you a chord, C, whatever the hell. Now, if you've never, you're not a student of music, you're not going to know whether that's the right chord or not. Now, similarly with law, if somebody says, here are the 5 principles of equity dealing with blah, 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 you're going to accept it at face value. The advantage of it is that if you have a reasonable degree of knowledge in that particular area, it's hugely helpful. So it's an information source.
Yeah, because I used it earlier on today now about the Irish Constitution, Bunrock Behair, and we just needed a quick and it came
reminder.
It was just fantastic.
Correct, correct. Yeah. And therein lies the actual use case of it.
Yes.
I this morning was looking at I think that bugs the hell out of me. The way you get so annoyed that something you should really know and you should learn how to do it and you don't, and it keeps coming up and up, repetitively up to you. So every now and then I try and slow myself down to actually find out how to do it properly. But I was having a problem with formatting in Word, and so all I did was I took a photograph of the ruler at the top of the document I was working on, and I said, how do I get consistent formatting through the document? So I got this big long spiel, but I was able to narrow it down and say, no, I'm looking for a justification on the left, right, whatever. But it came out eventually with the answer. But I put in another question on something else yesterday, and it came out with an answer that was so convoluted and so difficult to understand that I might as well just go and read the book.
Yeah, and a friend of mine was talking to me about this only over the weekend and making a very good point. It's as good as what you put into it and how you interrogate it.
Correct.
Isn't that? That's
correct.
The creative part of it, how you put in.
Yeah, but there's a difference. The way I see it is there's a difference between having information and having knowledge. There's a significant difference there. I can give you a book explaining how to do something, and the book may be very informative, but getting and reading the book and then being able to understand it, interpret it and use it is the knowledge side.
Right.
The information side is in the book. So all of the information that you want on legal issues is by and large available on the internet. You can find it somewhere. And not only that, but these search bodies funny, I'll give you another example this morning. I was talking to my missus, which, as you would over breakfast, as I was prepping for the show. And she said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, I'm talking about legal issues and I'm also going to talk about AI. She says, oh, God. But what she said to me was, we were having a conversation about, she said, she read something in the paper that said that Goldman Sachs or something or whatever, some news agency is going to lose 35% of their backroom staff to AI. And she said to me, well, not Jeannie Mac, so that means that I could be talking to a robot. I suppose they'll get to that stage. I said, are you kidding me? They're there already.
Well, at that stage.
I said, they're there already. So what I did was, I hope she's not listening. What I did was,
I'm going to send her a tape. So
what I did was, I opened Gemini. I think it was Gemini. It doesn't matter. And I pressed the button, the speak button, to the chat bot.
And just for listeners, that's an AI platform.
Yes, it's an AI platform with an AI agent, which is a robot, effectively at the other side. And I said to the robot on the phone, so I pressed the button and I said, "Can you explain to can you tell my wife whether or not call centres will have robots answering the phone?" And the phone, my phone responded with a very, very pleasant voice, American female, saying, "Of course, yes, John. Yes, this is in fact the case now throughout the world. Now there are AI chatbot agents answering phones around the world." And then I paused. I said, "Sorry, I'm interrupting you now, but I presume you're one of those." And she said, "Yes, I am one of those." So,
incredible,
and this is where we're at, and this is the fascinating thing about it. But therein lies, going back to the basic point that I'm making, is that I can put a chat bot, which is an algorithm, computer-based model on my website, which can interrogate all the information on my site with all of the blogs on it. And you can come on and ask this chatbot, "Could you please explain John's blog on such and such a thing for me? Could you please summarise it for me?" And the point here is that if I vet the information myself on the website and make sure that it's accurate, then you'll get an accurate reply back based on that information and that information only. And therein lies what a lot of companies are now doing, is that they are generating their own information base and validating it and verifying it. And therein lies a lot.
Right, and the AI in question then will only take from that database, which, as you say, they're validating. Correct. That's very interesting.
Correct, and a huge amount, quite a considerable amount of large companies, multinational companies, are creating their own, if you like, information sources. So because they are concerned, obviously, with that issue that you mentioned at the outset here, i.e. everything gets thrown into the mix, and therefore there's a huge possibility that there's bias in there, huge possibility that there's misinformation in there, and huge possibility not only because this whole thing about hallucinating is, it sounds like you're talking about a human, but they can hallucinate, and I have had multiple examples of hallucination by these. So you don't trust them, is the bottom line.
Right.
And so we're talking about them. You don't trust
them. Yeah, but you see, this is the danger, that they'll become personalities. They'll
correct.
Become...
Well, yeah, but sure, look, you've got robots talking to people now.
Of course.
I mean, I slag, and again, I really am digging a hole for myself here, but I remember slagging my good wife when she wouldn't talk to me about something. So I knocked on the phone and I said, "Can you talk to me about such and such?" And I said, "This could be a whole new area for advancement."
Yeah, I'm not talking to you, but talk to my chat.
I'm talking to me. I mean, she's not talking to me, so I'm going to talk to the phone.
Yeah.
But
so there's no danger then that it's going to put attorneys, solicitors, barristers out of a job?
No, but what it is going to potentially do is take a lot of that grunt work.
Yes.
Is that the right word to
Yeah,
use?
sure, yeah.
A lot of the grunt work. So it should fine-tune it should, because again, it's a question of learning how to use it properly.
Right.
And it should fine tune.
I can't help but put a bit of devilment in here. So if that means then that your staff aren't working as hard as they might have done in the past, would it be cheaper to go along and see John Lynch and his associates then?
Well, the big fear people have, and this, don't forget that it's highly.
I feel a sidestep going on here. We're going.
Yeah, but it's a bit like everything else. Doesn't mean that everybody's going to lose their job. No, it just means that everybody can actually be better at their job. It means that we can have a better life balance. It means that, it means that your work doesn't have to be drudgery. It means that you can do all the bits of your work that you enjoy rather than the bits that you don't. I mean, who enjoys producing reams and reams and reams and reams of paper, whatever, it means that people can pay more attention to the quality of the work rather than the quantity of the work. So there's a lot of pluses in it. There's a lot of dangers in it, but there are a lot of pluses.
Yeah, well, I find it invaluable in the last few months in particular. I just love it. I think it's great. And I'm only sort of dipping my toe in it, to be honest with you. What else, John?
Right. So on the more mundane legal side of things, the whole ADR stuff has exploded.
ADR?
I was going to say additional. Assisted, the whole mediation, alternative dispute resolution, so the whole alternative to courts.
Yes.
The whole trying to make courts only a place where you go where you have an intractable dispute, or where there's
last resort,
last resort, high level resort, if you like, and ADR, and ADR has been coming for an awful long time. But the other one that I find very interesting is that they've dipped their toe. The legal system has dipped its toe. I'm following your analogy now, into the area of representative actions. Do you remember we talked about class actions?
Yes, yeah.
Well, representative actions, that's what they're called, are a different animal. What effectively it is it's consumer-based litigation, massive, large-scale consumer-based litigation. So you have to be a recognised entity to take the action. So, for example, there's one case that has been taken by one particular body, which escapes me now at this stage. But basically, if there was a large consumer issue within society, like let's say, there was an abusive process, it's something similar to what you often see, like the EU Commission taking cases against Facebook or whatever. But this is a consumer-based action that could be taken in Ireland by a body representing consumers. So let's say, the current one that I have been checking out, I won't say any more than checking out, is the cost of social media, and how much your Facebook costs. But never mind that, how much your Sky costs, how much your whatever, and all these various social. And when you look at the cost of them, and you look at, they say, I'm going to increase it by X, Y, and Z, and how difficult it is to get out of these contracts and all that. And let's say you have a consumer body, which we have, and they decide they're going to take class action on behalf of consumers against a large organisation. So it's like indirect funding to take a big case. So instead of you taking the case against Sky because they won't let you get out of their contract, or they've upped it substantially or whatever, so it's kind of giving this representational action by a particular entity is able to take. They have to be recognised.
Even though class actions are not part of our legal system. Even though
class actions aren't part of our legal system.
Right. And this will deal with something similar to class action outside of the court?
Yeah, no, in court.
Oh, in court.
So
okay.
It's a case taken by a consumer body on behalf of thousands and thousands of consumers, and they're able to constitute the case on that basis. So it's kind of just a way of creating a kind of class action within the consumer area, if you know what I mean. So that's another one. And the other one then is there's always been a principle of champerty, which is basically where you can't fund an action for somebody. So, like, you could have a large commercial fight against somebody and you can't get funding, or if you do get funding, it's frowned upon by so in other words, you're not supposed. So it's kind of a way of getting the David and Goliath, getting David to be able to get funding now, and they've introduced that, which is kind of watering down the age-old principle that you can't go off and, if you like, insure your action by getting funding, so you're covering the cost of the action, if you know what I mean.
Just explain, I'm kind of lost with that now. So if I want to take on a big company, for example...
Yeah, and you don't have the money.
Right, can I source funding from...
You can source funding from a particular, like an insurance company or a bank or whatever, or somebody who's prepared to fund it.
Who would have an interest in that.
Who would have a share
action,
then in whatever your success you have.
And
that's why historically it was frowned upon, because effectively what you're doing, it's a bit like, you're taking the risk out of litigation.
Okay, but you'd have to convince whoever your action is worth supporting in some way. Okay,
and the other one that again is starting to come to play is the whole sustainability, the environmental actions, group environmental actions. So basically taking cases against companies for not being green. This is the new litigation that's coming down the tracks as well. So
I presume there's a European element to that then, is there?
Yeah. It's come from Europe, basically. But, the other more... But they're kind of what I would call high-level type of interventions into the legal system to try and modernise it. Well, people might argue it's not modernising it, if you know what I mean, but what it is it's introducing ways of ensuring that people can get access to justice. It's the access to justice idea that, a lot of people have been put off by the cost of litigation. And I mean, cost of litigation is a huge issue.
Absolutely.
Very, very
huge.
substantial.
So all in all, was 2025, was it a good year for the legal system in terms of what was brought in, what was introduced and something like? Well,
like every year, some things, like there are some things that they've brought in. Like one of my pet kind of observations, if you like, about what's brought in is, if it is brought in, you need the resources behind it. Like, they're introducing changes to the family law system. And as an example, I'll give it to you as an example. The new family law system they're talking about, on paper, in terms of what's enacted, looks like it could be good, insofar as what they've tried to do is they tried to make it more accessible. So what they've tried to do is they've tried to move it down to the district court, which is more of a local court venue. Problem with that is that if you don't resource the local venue, what you end up doing is flooding an already flooded system.
Sure, yeah.
And it was only the other day I was talking to somebody who said that they were down in the district court and they're on their 5th visit to the court and they still haven't been heard. Now, I'm thinking to myself, if you reintroduce what is a good idea to try and make and reduce the time and the cost of litigation to the person who's taking it, which is an absolute good idea, well then, you need to put the resources in place. And it's a bit like the other observation that I make about, the the persistent drive that's been over the last number of years, and the right drive to try and bring down the cost of litigation from both cost point of view and the level of damages. And they've done it. They've brought down damages substantially in Ireland over the last number of years. They've brought down the cost of litigation over the last number of years. And the court system is introducing automation. We were talking about AI there, but they're introducing and trying to change the old systems and replace them with new systems to make it all more efficient. But has insurance costs come down in Ireland? No. So to me, it all has to be interlinked, that if you're going to rationalise the system, and the same way as your point about if you're going to, the whole AI thing, if you're going to introduce changes into the legal system to make us more efficient, that's what should happen. That's what you should be looking for. You should look for a better service and a more fine-tuned service, you know.
Interesting as always. John, thanks very much. Happy Christmas to you
Many
and to your team and to your family and all of that. And
you.
I can't wait to send that recording to your wife as well. Great to see you. Thanks, John. Thanks. Thanks very much indeed. We'll take a break. Back with more in just a moment.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the Expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high-roof vans, long wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Now, Clavcular, or Clav, is a 19-year-old influencer, and he has become one of the most polarising figures in the growing look-smacking space. It's a subculture fixated on appearance enhancements that ranges from harmless grooming tips to extreme, medically questionable practices, and we're talking here about young men. Ben Scallan from Gript Media joins me now. He's been covering this. Good morning to you, Ben.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Good to talk. I'm feeling like a real dinosaur when I talk about this because I have to admit, Ben, I wasn't across this at all. Would you just give me the background to this?
Yeah, so looks maxing is a trend that's been going on the internet among young men in particular for the last couple of years. And it's essentially, in a nutshell, just the idea of trying to look your absolute best, which I think is something that we can all agree is pretty reasonable. There's nothing wrong with that in principle. You know, it started off pretty moderate with people trying to improve their dress sense, improve their grooming, get a better haircut, take care of your skin, things like that. Go to the gym, of course, you know, get in physically good shape.
Yeah.
All stuff that we should all be doing and that is totally admirable and reasonable. But in certain quarters, there's been this kind of acceleration where you have guys going to more extreme lengths that you would not encourage young people to be pursuing because they might go a little bit overboard and become slightly looks obsessed, and I think we'll be getting into that probably shortly.
Yeah, and tell me about some of those rather questionable practices. What are we talking about here exactly?
So the individual you mentioned, Clavcular, who's this online influencer, he has over 100,000 followers on Instagram. He is 6'2", which is a very good height. You know, he's a tall young man. He's talking about potentially spending $100,000 on a leg lengthening surgery, which involves breaking your leg under surgical conditions and then putting a kind of a binder on it that extends this gradually over the course of a protracted period of time so that he can go from 6'2" to 6'6". And obviously that comes with enormous risks. It's excruciatingly painful, as you can imagine. And it costs a fortune, but he thinks, no, I want to be taller so that I can be more of a kind of an imposing presence when I'm walking around. You have guys doing things like bone smashing, which involves basically causing impact to your cheekbones so that they swell, and then you cover it with makeup so that you people can't see the redness, but it gives you more prominent cheekbones so that your face has a more angular, defined look, this sort of thing. So lots more that you could get into, but yeah, clearly I think some people have lost the plot a bit when it comes to how far you're willing to go to look appealing.
And seemingly he's a big following on this, but are people who follow him, are they going to those extremes that you've described, Ben?
Not a majority of people, but there are certainly a small subset of guys who do become extremely fanatically obsessed with their appearance. And their argument is that, you know, women, according to them, are very picky and they have very high standards today. And so if you want to do well in the romantic sphere or if you want to get job opportunities, you know, you can imagine, obviously, if you're a handsome man, you're probably more likely to get favorable outcomes in job interviews than if you're less attractive. You know, this is just kind of a fact of human nature. And so the guys who advocate for this would say, these sorts of extreme measures are necessary to get a leg up now at a very judgmental time in human history. I don't personally agree that it's justified to start taking elective surgery to try and reorganise your face, but that's the argument there.
Something I'm intrigued on, we've often spoken to you on this programme about political issues, for example. Why did you choose to write about this? Does this particularly trouble you, Ben?
It does. I think it says a lot about our culture in the West and in the modern world, and none of it is good, because men used to pride themselves primarily on their abilities to perform. You know, your competence, having a skill that you've spent your life honing and trying to refine so that you can become as good at it as humanly possible. And in many ways, I think that's what primarily attracts women to men. You know, obviously there's a looks component too. We all know this. Clearly, if you are handsome and if you're physically impressive, you're going to do better in life. But it's really not the be all and end all, particularly not for a man. And so to see young men becoming extremely looks obsessed and literally putting on makeup and things like this is a little bit perturbing, I suppose, as to the state of modern masculinity.
I just find it all so blooming scary, but there you go. And we've just finished a conversation there about artificial intelligence as well. The world is changing at such a rate, or maybe it's just my age, Ben, but it seems to be changing drastically, quickly.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I'm 28 years old, and I can feel it myself. You almost get whiplash every time there's a new advancement in technology, or it seems like every trend that comes out now is totally anti-human and a dramatic departure from what we would have grown up with. And as a young man with a child, like I've got a 2-year-old son, I really do think a lot about what kind of world he's going to grow up in and what the value set he'll be introduced to will be in, say, 10 years' time when he's going to secondary school and, where we'll be, because it's really quite alarming, I have to say.
Can I, just before I let you go, can I drag you in a discussion we had earlier on in the programme? We were talking about Minister Jim O'Callaghan, and it's the front of the Irish Times today, high asylum numbers, a threat to cohesion, and fears there about a breakdown in social cohesion, prompting the government to seek to reduce the number of people coming to Ireland. And I was making the point, and again we discussed it, that if you said that last year, you'd be called all sorts of names, you'd be called bigoted, you'd be called racist, and one thing and another. There's a bit of a swing around here, isn't there?
There is, and on one hand, you want to give the minister credit for his honesty and saying something that's probably a little bit risky from his perspective, but I don't know that I want to give him too much credit for admitting that, because the government was warned as far back as 2022 in a report, a memo that was given to them internally to the Department of Housing, that importing vast numbers of asylum seekers could pose a threat to social cohesion. They knew this. They proceeded to allow it to occur anyway. And what do you know? It damaged social cohesion. And then in comes Minister Jim O'Callaghan after the damage has been done to tell us all that on reflection, that probably wasn't a great idea. I'm not sure he deserves much credit for admitting the problem afterwards. I wish politicians would be more in the habit of identifying these problems before they become a disaster and wreak havoc on the country at large.
I'm really getting my money's worth out of you today, but something else we discussed earlier on, and again with the same Minister, Jim O'Callaghan, and he's talking about dialing down the rhetoric following that awful tragedy in Australia, and he's talking about distinctions needing to be made between the Jewish people and the actions of Netanyahu and his government. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, he's absolutely right, of course. I think that it's probably one of the worst things, most corrosive things you can do in any society, to try to group large groups of people together as if they're a single unit, or hold them collectively responsible for the crimes or perceived misdeeds of one government or another, So, yeah, I think he's right. Although I will say as well, I don't think the government does that a lot. I saw Taoiseach Simon Harris getting a lot of pushback when he offered his condolences after the attack, and people were in the comments, some of them insinuating that his government's rhetoric was in some way culpable for this. And I think that that's really unfair, frankly, to the government, given that, I don't think Irish government's criticism of a particular state led to a mass shooting in Australia. So I think that, there has to be room for legitimate criticism, and it can't be used as a mechanism to shut down debate and legitimate disagreements. But in general terms, I would agree with the Minister on that.
All right. Interesting as always. Thanks for your time this morning, Ben. Thank you. Good morning to you. That's Ben Scallan there from Gript Media. 1800 938 007. The text and WhatsApp is 083 311 3311. Now, the Clonmel Rugby Club Male Voice Choir, they've given us tickets to give away for their Christmas concert. It's happening this coming Thursday night, the 18th, at Old St. Mary's. And, of course, it's the choir that appeared at the Munster-Gloucester match at the weekend as well. And they're very fine. And it should be a lovely night out indeed. So if you want to win those tickets, all you have to do is text or WhatsApp choir, CHOIR, to 083 311 3311, giving us your name and your details, and we'll give those tickets away in just a few moments' time. So do get texting or WhatsApping.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tip Today on 1800 938 007.
Earlier on this year, the wonderful Scoil Chormac in Cashel embarked on a major fundraising effort to upgrade their fleet of school buses and to ensure that at least one of those vehicles would be fully wheelchair accessible. Siobhan O'Brien, class teacher and chairperson of the Scoil Chormac fundraising committee, joins me now. Good morning to you, Siobhan.
Good morning, Fran. Thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome indeed. I think your target at the time was about 80,000. How are you doing so far, Siobhan?
Oh, Fran, we have gone over and above. We were very tentatively putting out 80,000 and thought we were very ambitious at the time. As it stands, we have raised 155,000. So
wow.
We have blown the socks off it. It's just been an amazing experience all around.
Fantastic indeed. And people have been obviously very good to you with all sorts of fundraising, I suppose, Siobhan.
Oh, we've been supported so hugely in the last couple of months, Fran. It's just been an eye-opener for us, the respect that we're and the love that's been shown for us by the community. Businesses have come on board, individuals ran different occasions, the online donations, like even the morning of our event here in Scoil Chormac, or in the rugby club. The local milkman, John O'Donnell, called in and donated milk to us. A lady who was on her way downtown shopping came in with money in an envelope specifically to give to us. Like, people went out of their way to support us and to show their love for the school. It's just been mind-blowing, to be honest.
Yeah, well, people are very appreciative of what's happening in Scoil Chormac, you see, Siobhan. So why wouldn't they? Have you started to buy a new fleet then? Have you started to buy new buses, or what's the story with that?
Yeah, so we had 4 buses when we started our fundraising campaign. So we've upgraded all 4 of those to 2021s. So they're here in school and being used every day. My own class got to go to the Horse and Jockey for afternoon tea last week as their Christmas treat. There's been teams going to quizzes up the country. We've had basketball teams representing us in All-Ireland Championships, so they're on the go. There's students going out swimming, going to horse riding, so they're on the road as it is. And then we have ordered a wheelchair accessible bus that will accommodate 3 of our wheelchair using students at one time. So that's being delivered in January, please God. So we'll have a brand new bus for our students. So it's fantastic.
Now, I presume the fundraising just doesn't stop because you need ongoing fundraising. What have you planned for 2026, Siobhan?
We're kind of catching our breath at the moment, Fran. And I'd say we're going to keep our head down for a few months because people have been so generous. But there is always things, we've projects going on all the time. The money that we raised allowed kind of a walking track to be put in because money was freed up in other areas. So the money that kind of might have been targeted for the buses has allowed us to spend that on a walking track. We have a new stage. We're actually here today. We're in the middle of our Wizard of Oz production. It's the first day for the public today. So the families and friends of our students have come in today to watch the seniors perform. So a new stage has been ordered for that. We do a production every year. So that's been fantastic. But there's always, like, we have a jacuzzi that's used all the time. That's kind of running into trouble. So there will probably be fundraising done for that maybe down the line. But we do want to be mindful that people have been so generous this year that you don't want to keep going back rattling buckets in the same faces. Do you know, it's not fair. People
well, sure, but I'm certain people are always delighted to help out Scoil Chormac in any way that they can. The other thing, of course, is, you know, the places available and capacity and all of that, Siobhan. Is that ongoing?
Actually, it's always kind of to the fore of our minds here, Fran. Our students, Joe, they need experiences outside of the classroom. It's not a traditional school setting. So we're always looking for spaces for our children to go out for different reasons, for movement breaks, for regulation, to access their curriculum appropriately. So space is always a concern. And I think that happens in every school, to be honest, but particularly so for us. Because our numbers are reduced, we wouldn't have the same ratios as, say, traditional mainstream schools. So classes are being used by smaller numbers of children, but the needs are greater in different ways. So space is always a huge concern here. But we get creative and we're flexible and we try and make use of it. And that's another thing that has actually come out of our fundraiser. We've made great links with the community. Cashel Rugby Club are allowing us to use their facilities. Larkspur have come on board and they're offering use of their facilities. So the fundraiser itself, the monetary value of it has been fantastic, but the friendships and the links that we've created with the community are even better. So it's been fantastic. Of
course, and those links, that will go on into the future, Siobhan, you know. So.
Yeah, like even going around and talking to people, the esteem and the regard that we're held with in the community. Lots of people and lots of families have ties to the school. Maybe it might be a child of their own or an extended family member, and people really do value what we do here. So it's fantastic, and it's great to hear the lives that we've touched. When you're kind of here in the middle of it, you don't see the bigger picture sometimes. But the lovely stories we've been told and the connections to the schools as we've been going around have been amazing. So it's been lovely.
Well, Johnny Luby managed to get couch potatoes like myself out walking, Siobhan. So, I mean, there's...
Johnny Luby has half the county scared. I think we were doing collections of it. If Johnny Luby saw that I passed you and didn't give money, I'd be in trouble. So Johnny is always banging the drum for us. He's great. All
right. Well, look, congratulations. When are you breaking up for Christmas?
We're finished up this Friday, please, God.
This Friday.
So we'll have a 2-week break and then back at it again in January.
All right.
But Fran, can I just take this opportunity to say happy Christmas to everybody across the county from all here in Scoil Chormac. Thank you for your love, your friendship and your kindness. It's very much appreciated and very much welcomed. So thank you to you all and to yourselves and Tip FM for your support. It's been greatly appreciated by us all here.
Well, you're very welcome indeed. Siobhan, look after yourself. Happy Christmas to you and everybody at Scoil Chormac.
Same to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Siobhan O'Brien there, who's class teacher and chairperson of Scoil Chormac Fundraising Committee. They set out just with the target of 80 grand, and you heard there the amount of generosity that's out there is incredible. Leanne is with me in studio. Big reaction to everything this morning.
Huge reaction, and social media is wild as well. I think Father Tony Flannery really sparked something yesterday about that idea of female deacons and priests.
Now, you were surprised at the reaction to that, because obviously Father Tony would advocate for female deacons and obviously female priesthood as well. But what's on social media?
I would say I was so shocked, but about 80% of the female comments were against the notion of female deacons and priests.
That's incredible.
Which I completely thought would be the other way around. There was lots of men getting involved saying, no, we don't see an issue with this. There was women getting involved, but the majority of the longer messages were women who were against the idea.
And is that because they're traditional Catholics and they're...
Yeah, I was surprised at the amount of traditional Catholics.
Yeah.
Because all of it was like, if you are a true Christian, or if you've read the Bible, or if you practice traditional Catholicism, you would know this will never happen and you need to accept that. Which I was so surprised at, because if there was an opportunity to be female deacon, I would love to be a female deacon. I would love it. I think that would be something I'd...
Of course, you never told us that. You're telling me that now live on it. Would you really?
Yeah, definitely. Faith has played a huge part in my life, always. And I don't always necessarily correlate with the current church. I do find it's more of a personal thing, but if the church was more progressive in that way, I would definitely love to be involved.
And do you think other young women like yourself might feel the same, do you think?
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of young people, obviously the marriage issue comes into it as well, but I think there'll be a lot of young people genuinely interested in a more progressive Catholic church where maybe there was deacons, both female and male, that some priests were allowed to get married. I think there would be a huge uptake nationally.
Right, but a lot of what you're hearing on our social media platforms would be more fundamental approach to
Yeah, they wanted to stay the way it always has been, but I think there's a lot of young people who find they want to connect with the church, but they find obviously generational trauma, or they just feel like they don't have a space to do that. They want to be more involved and more invested. So I think from the younger point of view, the younger commentary is this would be great, but the more traditional fundamental is absolutely not.
Very interesting indeed. So I presume we're going to continue with these conversations, are we?
Yeah, we're reaching out to people now. It has been one of those things where people have made the point they're afraid to speak out on either side because they're afraid of online trolls.
All right, but they posted on social media, but they don't want to.
Yeah, they have a fear that they think religion has become one of those topics in our daily lives where what you say...
Right, it's polarising.
It's polarising, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. What else is happening tomorrow? I'm asking more from my own point of view than the listeners. What are we doing tomorrow? On the program?
Deputy Aidan Farley will be on because there's 375,000.
The Sock Dems, is it?
Yeah, has been invested for social media influencers to promote Ireland.
Oh.
To get more tourism in. So they're wondering, like, long term, is this really the way we want to go about promoting the country? Is investing in influencers really going to bring more tourists to Ireland?
Interesting conversation. Yeah. Well, what else?
That idea of roadside memorials is huge. We'll be talking to PARC Park, the organisation for those affected by roadside tragedies, on that idea on dual carriageways and areas over 60 kilometres that they need to remove roadside memorials.
Okay, there's talk about banning roadside memorials there. All right, okay, so we'll be chatting about that and much, much more, as we say as well. The winner of our tickets to the rugby club choir in Old St. Mary's on Thursday night is Martin Kennedy from Clonmel. Well done to you, Martin. A pair of tickets for you. Thanks, Leanne. That's it for me. Leanne produced, Ali looks after content. Stephen has the time tunnel on the lunchtime show. And I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye now.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.